Well, we've just witnessed the real launch of a new era in aviation with the rollout of the Boom XB1, the first test article of the successor to Concorde, the Boom Overture supersonic jet. Yesterday's Colorado event had more than 7,000 people joining in virtually and included speakers like Chief Concorde pilot Mike Bannister and NASA leaders and astronauts Major General Charles Bolden and Captain Robert Hoot Gibson, as well as representatives of the airlines and the industry as a whole. But the star of the show, of course, was the supersonic demonstrator, XB1, history's first independently developed supersonic jet. And we're thrilled to be joined now by Blake Skoll, the founder and the CEO of Boom Supersonic. Well, congratulations, Blake, a great occasion. It's great to be talking about a future with optimism, eh?
Well, it's funny to be talking in 2020 about the future of flight, but I feel like we're all suffering this year from the tyranny of social distancing. And what we're missing is that human connection that can only happen in in-person interaction. And so Boom is building a successor to Concorde, but more mainstream. Think across the Atlantic in 3.5 hours or across the Pacific in as little as 4.5. Allowing you to be there, experience more of the world's people, places, and culture in person. And this week we were celebrating a major milestone in the program as we've now finished the design and build of XB1 with the rollout event. And that marks the handoff from creating the aircraft to testing it. So we've got 36 ground tests ahead of us. Then next year we'll be in the air and setting speed records by the end of the year. It's a really exciting moment for us.
A lot of us have been watching the images of you putting the demonstrator together. How big a milestone is this? And I guess it speeds up the testing program.
That's right. Well, the company just turned 6. So how long does it take to build a supersonic jet? Apparently 6 years. And 6 years from now, we will have our Overture airliner flying in its FAA flight test. So the XB1 is really the technology demonstrator for Overture. It's 1/3 scale. So it's going to have a bit more of the form factor of a fighter jet, but it's got airliner technology in it. It's got the carbon fiber composites. It's got our advanced aerodynamics. It's got our propulsion intakes. It has our augmented reality vision system so the pilots can see the runway for landing without that droop nose like Concorde had. So it's got all the key bits in it for Overture. And we've brought it together into a real airplane. And when you do that, as you know, you don't just solve the aerodynamics and materials challenges, the things you do on a paper study, but you have to solve 100% of the problems. You have to make the landing gear fit. You have to come in and hit your weight target. You have to manage thermals on the aircraft. And with XB1, we've solved 100% of those problems. And so we feel very confident that we have the team and the expertise that's now going to be able to scale that up and take it to Overture and to tens of millions of passengers.
And what about in terms of propulsion? Because you can't really shrink that down, can you? I mean, how are you handling that?
So there are 2 components to a supersonic propulsion system. There's the intake, and then there's the engine itself. And the intake, as we know, it's like an adapter for supersonic flight. You're taking the oncoming high-speed air, you're slowing it and compressing it. You're taking that kinetic energy and converting it into pressure energy so you can recover it into thrust. And then you feed it to the engine itself. And so XB1 at smaller scale has an off-the-shelf engine that was designed by General Electric. And Overture will need much larger and lightly customized engines. So those are going to be a medium bypass turbofan, but they're going to feature that same intake technology that we've developed for XB1. And we announced just a couple months ago that we've teamed up with Rolls-Royce for those engines for Overture. And so it's going to be a new design turbofan engine with the latest technology for efficiency and for low noise, developed off of an existing commercial core.
Now, I know you said at the very beginning that when you first launched this whole program, you talked about having seat mile costs similar to subsonic business class. And will it be practical on hundreds of transoceanic routes? So the kind of norm for anybody traveling business class, is that still going to be the case?
Absolutely. Even as we've been able to advance the design of Overture, we've actually had a separate team working ahead on it now for a couple years, led by some alumni of the G6 program at Gulfstream. And as we get further into that design, we're still able to hit those ambitious targets where Overture will be able to match the seat mile costs of subsonic business class. And that means that airlines will be able to be profitable at fares similar to what they're already charging. And so, if you're one of those people who is fortunate enough to basically have a flying bed today because you hate that the flight is so long. For a fare that's about the same, you'll be able to arrive in half the time, and you'll be able to have the best bed in the world, which is the one at your home.
And you've been getting interest, I know, from the market right the way through. But also recently, the US Air Force, I think that's now taken a real interest in what you're doing.
Yeah, that's right. Our anchor market is airlines because our vision is to make the world dramatically more accessible. And so we want to build airplanes that are faster, cheaper, and more convenient. But there's some also other great secondary use cases. And we're excited to be working with the Air Force to build a VIP version of Overture that could be used for presidential or executive airlift. And we see that as being really meaningful. As you think about our diplomats being able to arrive in person, where that human connection with far-flung peoples is so important for building peace and understanding. And being able to take things from Zoom calls to in person is going to have wonderful second-order effects for the world.
And the one area that we do face a challenge is sustainability and the environment. There's been a lot of criticism of the aviation industry, and of course, people will always look askance at the idea of supersonic travel. So how are you combating that sustainability challenge?
Well, the approach follows from our mission. And we believe that a world in which people can go more places more often is going to be a better world, a better planet for us all to live on. And so we need to build a future in which it's not just good enough to match the sustainability of current aviation, but we need to completely remove the environmental barriers to travel so people can feel free to travel much more than they do today without any fear of adverse effects on the planet. And so we challenge ourselves to make Overture 100% carbon neutral from day one. And we're able to do that through supporting in 100% blends that new generation of jet fuels that are built by carbon that was removed from the atmosphere to begin with. And so Overture, I think, is the first airliner designed from the ground up to run on 100% alternative fuels, and therefore it can be 100% carbon neutral. So the great thing about flying about Overture, you don't have to worry about making more noise. It's the same or better noise profile than other aircraft today. You don't have to worry about what you're doing to the climate because it's zero net carbon. And so you can just experience the world's people, places, and cultures and not worry about the environment. We've taken care of that.
Congratulations again on a great rollout, Blake. And I'm sure all of us are looking forward to seeing the XB1 flying and going supersonic in 2021. Well, if you want to see more about supersonic transport activities, you can go to our website, wearefin.com. And thank you for watching.